Okay, we have arrived at the next intended destination on this March 1977 phone trip, Saluda, South Carolina. This is an independent place, and it has independent operators, as we found out at the last stop, because when I asked for directory assistance, it took forever to get here.
Operator? Operator?
Can I have directory assistance for Saluda?
Thank you. West City.
Saluda.
One moment, I'll connect you. Directory assistance, operator 79.
That final operator is in Greenwood, South Carolina, and from the ringtone, you know that Greenwood is an NX1 switch because, with one exception that I know, this ring is only found on NX1s. It's a crossbar system made by North Electric. Greenwood has TSD, Traffic Service Desk, which gives you operators and the ability to dial a collect or third-person number with a 0 first. The operator will then come on and handle the call details as the call goes through. When we asked for directory assistance, there was an operator in the middle, this one,
31 West City,
that was completely unnecessary. That is the centralized directory assistance for the entire state, located in Columbia. And by the way, it has the same ringtone as the Columbia intercept concentrator that we heard from Lexington.
Operator 524, what number did you dial? 31 West City.
But that operator shouldn't be in the connection. Our first operator should have keyed 027 plus 131 to go directly to Greenwood directory assistance. Instead, she just keyed 131. And so we got this
31 West City
before we went to Greenwood.
Directory assistance, operator 79.
Anyway, here we are in the Greenwood sector of South Carolina. And so when we dial 0 from here, we're going to go into the Greenwood TSD. It'll wait 9 seconds, and then when we don't dial anything else, it'll flash asking for our number. We've gotten a T-carrier trunk to the Greenwood TSD. When it flashes, the identifier here will send our number forward.
Can you tell me what exchanges I can call locally from here?
Saluda?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to call? I don't really know.
Well, I'd just like to know for future reference if you have that.
Well, you can call, let's see, you can call Ridge Spring, that's a 685 number.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
That's all that I know of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
The identifier sent the usual protocol for a coin phone call to TSD. Key pulse, 53, our 7 digits, and then a regular start. And it's going to do that on both 1 and 0 calls. Customers dialing 1 plus to direct dial their long distance calls go to the same TSD unit as when they dial 0 plus. But it's a different trunk group, and that's also true here from a coin phone. If I dial 1, here we've connected to a 2600 controlled trunk, not T-carrier, to the same TSD unit. But we can wait more than 9 seconds before dialing, and the trunk doesn't time out. The fact that it just goes to a busy signal after 26 seconds, while what happens when you dial 0 is the trunk flashes after 9 seconds, that proves that 1 and 0 are going out on separate trunk groups. I'm kind of surprised because with this protocol, 2 digits before the phone number. Those 2 digits can be anything. If they wanted to, they could combine the 1 and 0 trunks and let the identifier tell Greenwood which one the customer had dialed by having a distinct 2-digit code for each case. Why they don't, I do not know. They might want to have a separate peg count for the direct dialed calls, 1+, as opposed to the operator-assisted 0+ calls. But I really don't know why they didn't combine it. We'll get back to TSD. Let's do some local stuff. First, here is an intra-office ringing number, 445 plus 4 digits. So that's the local ringtone, and it sounds like a GTE ringtone. Very loud, really typical. But the dial tone and the selectors, and as you'll hear in a minute, the busy signal, sound like they're made by Stromberg-Carlson. The 2 selector cut-ins that we heard on the thousands and hundreds digit, these. They have a metallic sound, and they also are very long. That's a Stromberg XY thing. The busy signal is classic Stromberg XY. Here's dialing our own number. You know, when I hear something like that, it just reminds me how wonderful this electromechanical stuff is. But then I think, rural XY step, I'd rather curl up with a nice panel. That's the kind of thing Ben used to say. Now, if you listen to this with headphones, you can hear that on that previous busy signal, the Saluda ring, the one that sounds like a GTE ring, is leaking through, and it is completely out of sync with the busy. So there are 2 completely separate tone plans in this office, for whatever reason. I tried dialing various initial digits. For example, here's what happens when you pick up and dial a 2. The switch in Saluda is, I think, the oldest form of Stromberg XY because it doesn't have the advanced selector logic that some of the newer sounding ones have. Goldston and Bon Lee have the new selector logic. This one has the old selector logic because when you dial a 2 or a 3, here's the 3. Unlike what I believe are the newer Stromberg XYs, here, when you dial an initial digit that needs to be blocked, the selector acts as if all the trunks are busy, sliding over to the 11th terminal where the overflow reorder is. Why don't they just intercept a wrong number like that with a recording? They can't because there are trunks on those levels. In this case, it's almost certainly the 2000 group and the 3000 group of 445. They want to make sure that the customer dials all 7 digits, or in this case, at least the last 5 digits, before you can get in on those trunks. Let's say I forgot that I needed to dial 1 first for New York. I tried to call Ben. I would dial 2126. Well, that's enough to get the local number 445-2126 ringing. So to prevent that, it does this. The newer XYs have a way of going to the reorder faster, at least on the first digit. Now there is no 445-4000 group, which can be readily demonstrated by dialing 445 and then 4. After I dial 4454, you'll hear a momentary flash of answer supervision. It's like a phone going off hook and then on hook, and the relay in this phone clangs along with it.
The number you have dialed has been changed, temporarily disconnected, or it's not a working number. Please consult your telephone directory or call information. Thank you.
I tried dialing, but once it's gotten to the end like this, that doesn't reset it. If you hit a vacant level and you dial or flash before the recording is finished, it will go back to a ring, which is loud, obnoxious, and very GTE. Williamston, North Carolina was like that, but here the trunk actually goes off hook during the ring. It's hard to hear this because the ring is so loud that it just dwarfs the volume of everything else, but the intercept trunk is actually off hook while that ring is on.
The number you have dialed has been changed, temporarily disconnected, or it's not a working number. Please consult your telephone directory or call information. Thank you.
Now, what was that other town that was local from here?
You can call Ridge Spring. That's a 685 number.
Well, let's see if we can actually call it from here. We could not call it from our last stop even though we were supposed to be able to. So let's see what happens when we dial 685 here. Here's a 6. Well, this is clearly a trunk to another office, and all we dialed was 6, so it's different already. Here's the rest of the 7-digit number. Finally, we got to hear a ring from Ridge Spring. I should have dialed around more, but during this phone trip I hadn't realized that when you hear a ring like that, it may indicate that there are multiple ring frequencies in use for party lines, and I should try different numbers to see if they all sound like that, but that's the only ring I got. We were able to get the recording from Ridge Spring at our last stop. Let's get it from here. I'll just dial 6 and then 1. That ought to do it.
The number you have dialed is incorrect. Please consult your directory or dial information for assistance. The number you have dialed is incorrect. Please consult your directory or dial information for assistance. The number you have dialed is incorrect.
That's right, it is. Now there's also a recording in Greenwood, which we can get by dialing 1 to go into TSD and then 311.
The number you have dialed has been changed, temporarily disconnected, or is not a working number. Please refer to your current telephone directory or call information. This is a recording, 80311.
Such is the hazard of recording in the 70s. Someone drives by talking on the Citizens Band radio, and it comes in on my tape recorder. But you might have noticed there was some other legitimate crosstalk in the telephone network at an earlier part of that call. In between the two rings that we heard before the recording, you heard crosstalk from a customer dialing.
The number you have dialed has been changed.
Here's directory assistance 1 plus 411, and then repair service 1 plus 611.
Red Kitchen Top at 49. Telephone repair service.
All right, now it's time to find out if we can get into the long-distance network without an operator on the line. The identifier here will sometimes fail, and when it does, an operator has to come on the line, at the very least temporarily, to ask for the number that we're calling from. But the identifier here is sending 9 digits. Not just our phone number, but the 53 in front of it. It's that 53 that is telling the equipment in Greenwood that we're calling from a coin phone. There's a very good chance that if we make the identifier fail, and an operator comes on the line saying, "Your number, please," and then we give her a number that doesn't sound like a coin phone, the call will go through as if it were being direct dialed from a non-coin telephone. At that point, we would be on the long-distance network all by ourselves, and we can dial non-completed calls to the US or Canada. Actually, we could dial completed calls, but that would end up billing to some random person, which is considered bad form in the original Phone Freak clan. In any case, I'm interested in seeing if we can get through the gate, so to speak. Now, in many places, an identifier can be caused to fail by going down and up on the switch hook just when it's about to start acting. So let's dial 1 and a telephone number, and just when the identifier is about to start, I'm going to flash. We'll see what happens. Before I dial the rest of the number, notice what the background noise on the trunk sounds like. This. Dialed the number, and I flashed, and that definitely made it fail, but the trunk is gone. We're sitting on some sort of silence, isolated from what was the trunk we were on. Strange, I don't know where we were just now. It might be possible to flash a little differently and get that to work, but there are other things that are probably better to try. Alright, I've dialed a 1. We're sitting on the trunk and I'm not going to dial anything, and when it eventually times out to the busy signal, I'm going to do a long flash, and maybe this time we'll get to keep the trunk. CB or notwithstanding, I'm going to flash, and if the trunk's still there, quickly dial a number.
You gonna pay for the cow?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I have a collect call from Officer Gresham. That's a charge. Will you accept a collect call from Officer Gresham? I beg your pardon? Just a moment. Sorry.
Oh, cancel the call, please.
Okay, that time everything worked normally. But if I flash to reset the trunk again and dial another number, maybe this time the identifier won't come back. Yes. That was Greenwood asking for our number, and it isn't happening.
Are you dialing direct?
Yes.
May I have your number?
I probably said 445-2299. Uh-oh, I'm not sure what she's doing.
Hold on just a moment.
Something's not right. I'm going to hang it up. Now we know she can hold me up under these conditions. That's good to know. Oh boy. I'm not sure what happened after that. She probably held the line for a long time. What might have happened is that she recognized my voice from a coin call earlier, and so it didn't make sense to have me at a home number dialing direct. So maybe she was going to go try to verify, literally busy number verify, the number I gave her. That was a way that they could, if they needed to, make sure that the person was giving the correct number. But what we learned is that if the identifier has been triggered once, you can do a long flash, reset the trunk, dial another number, and then it won't come back. Dialed 1. We've gotten a T-carrier trunk this time. And I'm just going to dial a number to get the identifier to spill, then reset the trunk. I flashed, and looks like it reset it. Okay, I'm going to call the permanent busy number in Ben's exchange. Not sure why that happened. Maybe an extra digit 1 got in there when I did the flash. I'll just try again. That was the flash for the number, and
Your number, please.
445-2299. Hey, what do you know? There's the Bell Harbor busy signal, showing I could just as easily have dialed Ben's number. So let me try flashing to reset the trunk and call another number. Oh boy. Okay, the operator comes back if you flash under those conditions. Now hopefully... Took a while, but she did release. I could have flashed on that last busy signal and dialed another number. But instead I want to try something on the 0 plus trunks. The trunks we get when we dial 0 are separate from the ones on 1, but so far I haven't seen any difference it makes, except the way it times out. You dial 0 and wait 9 seconds and it starts to go through, assuming you had dialed 0 by itself. The 1 trunk gives you 26 seconds to start dialing, which really isn't necessary. They could have a 9-second timeout for the first digit on a 1 trunk too. So what's the difference between 0 and 1, really? From a home phone, there's a big difference because 1 plus is designed to go through with no operator assistance unless the identifier fails, which it usually doesn't. But from a coin phone, there might not be any practical difference at all. Earlier, when we tried dialing a station-paid call on a 1 plus trunk, it did behave like this.
You gonna pay for the cow?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Will you accept for that for posture aggression? I need to call?
The operator was prepared to have me deposit money, otherwise she wouldn't have let the call go through. So let's try dialing 0 plus a long-distance call, let the identifier work so she knows I'm at a coin phone, and tell her I want to pay for it here. The only difference being we're on a 0 trunk instead of a 1 trunk.
Operator 24, may I help you?
Yes, I'm calling station to station.
You gonna pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Who's calling first? Chief, huh? 1 moment.
You know, we're getting operator 24 a lot. And at this point, I don't know why she has me on hold. My experience in Virginia at the commune, where the operators in Culpeper became suspicious, makes me think I have reason to be wary. But in the meantime, we're getting a lot of good TSD background noise. This buzz, that's a power supply noise. I think it's 360 Hertz pulse wave. NX1s do this a lot. The AIS system has a similar one, but it's a slightly different frequency.
Just a moment.
No idea what's going on. I'm going to try flashing.
Just a moment, sir. I've got to get the rate stay up.
Okay, perhaps that's why. We dialed a call on the 0 trunk and said we wanted to pay here. Maybe TSD doesn't automatically bring up the rate if you dial a coin call on a 0 trunk. It does on a 1 trunk. If so, then perhaps she is off waiting for another operator to answer to get the rate step. She may have had to call route and rate. But even that is taking ridiculously long.
It'll be 2:15 for the first 3 minutes. Don't put it in till they answer.
Okay.
And you have to put in $2, and when you do, I collect it.
Wow.
The number you have reached, LY3 9083, has been changed. The new number is area code 212-877-3552 in New York City.
Who are you calling?
I'm gonna call, yeah, it was changed, I remember now. I'll call later.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Pausing the tape a moment, that operator is confused. Now, it might be that there are places, like maybe Greenwood itself, where some of the old phones tend to get jammed up if the customer has more than $2 in the hopper. And for that reason, they like to collect the first $2 and then have the customer deposit the rest. But here in Saluda, this is a post-pay phone. There is no hopper for the coins to get stuck in. Each coin individually registers and then drops right into the coin box, and there's no way to get it back. So she is really confused. There is no such thing as collecting the coins from a post-pay phone. They are instantly collected the moment the customer drops them in. And yes, she does know where I am because I allowed the identifier to work. So that's just a mistake. In fact, when she did this, that was probably her pressing the coin return key, which would make sense had I been calling from a prepay phone. I might have used a dime to make the call initially. I might have deposited money while I was sitting there waiting. So just to make sure, she tried returning my coins. Unfortunately, that is impossible for the majority of the communities that she serves. They have post-pay phones. There's no such thing as coin return. Okay, so we are still on the same call. I'm sitting on the busy signal, and I can flash to reset the trunk and dial another number. But we are on a 0 trunk. Let's see what happens when we dial a long-distance number and the identifier fails on a 0 trunk. Will it also treat it like a direct dialed call, or perhaps an operator will first ask for my number and then ask, how do I want to build a call? Let's see. That again. Probably meaningless. I'll just try again. Pausing the tape again. If you heard the subtle sounds just in the last few seconds, Greenwood was about to go somewhere. See, it was going somewhere. It was completing to something. What that shows is that sometimes when we flash, intending to reset the trunk, we also dial a 1. And a 1 left dialed by itself does go somewhere. I never stayed on long enough to find out where it was going. Anyway, I'll restart the tape, where I reset the trunk again, and call a busy signal in my parents' original exchange, Lynbrook 3 in Long Island.
Your number, please.
445-9492.
Thank you.
Again, this shows that I could have just as easily called a real person with a Lynbrook 3 number in Long Island, my friend Dave, for example, but I was just demonstrating that it is possible to do. I wasn't especially interested in doing it. Boy, once you have put a call through with the operator to ask for your number, you really have to hang up a long time to disconnect. And as we saw earlier, it will recall the operator if you flash. I should mention here that in the early 1970s, certainly 1971, the Lynbrook 3 Long Island busy signal sounded like this. Ben and I used to joke about it. The length of the tone was ridiculously short. Anyway, this particular stop probably has more time spent on TSD than any other. And from reviewing the tapes, it seems like TSD really couldn't measure up to its Bell system counterpart, TSP, which was much more versatile and able to get the information to the operators when they needed it, such as how much does the customer need to deposit. We definitely had at least one inexperienced operator, and suspicion about me coming from a coin phone and then coming from a home phone may have figured into some of the delays. But if you want to get a sense of how TSD didn't really live up to its potential, despite that wonderful protocol where it sends 2 digits before the phone number, just listen to the Belvedere, New Jersey tape, where I call a 1+800 number, and the operator tells me to hang up and dial 0+800. That pretty much tells you about TSD. Such potential, but it was never really realized. Well, that's all I recorded from Saluda. The next stop is also an unexpected one.